Since its release in November 2023, the Osmo Pocket 3 has been one of the most talked about, hyped up cameras thanks to its small size, inbuilt stabilization and excellent 4K video. In fact, you've probably heard it all before and seen a lot of the social media videos hyping up. But for me, 6 months ago, before I bought this camera, I was really impressed with the quality of the footage I was getting out of my Galaxy S24 Ultra. And I had absolutely no desire to spend hundreds of pounds on a new piece of equipment that was just going to take up space and weight in my carry-on luggage for absolutely no reason whatsoever. However, it was for the reason of traveling that I actually ended up caving in and buying this camera. And in particular, when I started to film more videos on the front-facing camera, I realized that the quality just wasn't going to get me anywhere, and that's when I finally caved and bought the Osmo Pocket 3. But we're now at the beginning of 2025, over a year on from its initial release, and the big question is this camera still relevant, and should you still buy it right now at the beginning of 2025? Because for me, it's less about the in the cupboard B-roll shots, because I could just film them with my phone if I'm honest. And it's about the few things that I'm about to cover that really makes the Osmo Pocket 3 special for me. 1. Sensor size. I really don't hear this talked about enough when it comes to this camera, but actually the sensor size is probably going to be a massive upgrade from the one you've got currently on your phone. A larger sensor size improves the quality of a camera's image because a larger sensor means it's able to capture more light, which improves the quality of the image, the dynamic range and its low light performance. The larger 1-inch sensor of the Osmo Pocket 3 beats out even the high-end phones like the Galaxy S24 Ultra or the iPhone 16 Pro Max. This means that the Osmo Pocket 3 is able to get some really good shots, even compared to some of the great phone cameras out there. And whilst this 1-inch sensor size isn't as big as some of the popular mirrorless cameras on the market, the Osmo Pocket 3 has some obvious benefits compared to those, such as size, weight and cost, particularly if you're using it for traveling or going long distance, or if you like to use carry-on luggage a lot. 2. The inbuilt gimbal. Having a gimbal as part of the camera makes a huge difference when it comes to the stability of different shots. Electronic image stabilization has come a long way, and modern high-end phones do a really good job of cutting out some of the jitters and movements that you'd associate with day-to-day things. But when you compare it to the 3-axis gimbal like on the Osmo Pocket 3, the difference is quite apparent, again particularly in low light settings where electronic image stabilization really tends to suffer, and you'll see this on a lot of action cameras especially. The gimbal and the stabilization that comes with it are really handy whether you're just looking to remove some of the jitters and shakes from your walking or everyday activity, or whether it comes to more demanding things, so whether you're running, biking or potentially even on a boat, where a gimbal is the difference between footage being usable or totally trash. If you wanted, you could just buy a gimbal for your current device like the Insta360 Flow, like I did at the beginning of the last year when we went to Tromsø, because I knew we'd be out on the sea on a boat and it'd be really bumpy. However, it's a bit heavier than the Osmo Pocket 3 and you have all the camera quality limitations of the device you're using, which for me at the time was the S22 Ultra, and you can really see it start to struggle in these low light conditions. Another thing that I absolutely love about the Osmo Pocket 3 is that the camera can point towards you or out to the front to see what you're looking at, and this makes a massive difference when you compare it to using a front-facing selfie camera on a phone. This means that when you're doing something like vlogging or capturing your trip, you can easily swap between the two and get fantastic footage either way. This is something that not a lot of other cameras on the market can do, and really solves the problem of that low quality grainy footage you get from the front-facing camera on a phone. And because the head of the camera itself turns, it means that you don't need to turn the device itself, and you can always look at the screen and see what you're filming. Speaking of the screen, another great feature of the Osmo Pocket 3 is the ability to film in horizontal 4K for things like YouTube, or vertical 3K for something like social media. Although you lose a little bit of quality in the vertical, most social media platforms will compress the footage to 1080p anyway, so it doesn't make much of a difference. You'll also find that the vertical filming gives you a bit more height to the top and the bottom of your image, so it actually has some advantages of just filming in horizontal 4K and then cropping in. You'll get to see a bit more of whatever you're trying to showcase. Last but not least, one of my favorite things about the Osmo Pocket 3 is the ability to film in DLog M and then color grade the footage afterwards. Don't get me wrong, the footage that comes out of this camera is great raw, and that's exactly what I'm filming on now. And if color grading isn't for you, then just using the normal color profile is good enough for just about anything, and you'll be really pleased with the result. Color grading gives you a lot more opportunity to play with the colors and choose the mood and set the mood that you're looking for, or really bring out certain colors to make them look a lot more vivid and really pop on the screen. And if you look at these two videos side by side, you'll see the difference between the flat profile and after it's been color graded. I also find it to be much better to record in DLog M in low light conditions and then color grade the footage, as you don't tend to get blown out highlights or really dark shadow regions, and it gives you a much better opportunity to go in and change the colors to be better representative of what you actually saw when you were there in the moment. As always, the big question when it comes to new tech and gear is, should I wait for the next one? And I've already mentioned that the Osmo Pocket 3 was released back in October 2023. And with things like phones and cameras, if you're a year or more on from the previous release, there's a good chance you're just about to hit the next generation of products. But with the Osmo Pocket 3, that's not really the case, and there's no information about when the 4 might be released, but it's looking like it's probably not going to be this year, and maybe not even in 2026. Besides, this camera already has a lot of features that other cameras are still yet to catch up and replicate, so the need for a newer model or a newer generation probably isn't as pressing as some of the other things on the market. And even over a year on since its release, the Osmo Pocket 3 continues to be just as relevant as it was even at launch. If you're interested in more travel gear, have a look at this video on the right, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe.